Hey everyone, welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast episode. My name is Sam Thrash. I'm your show host over here. Thanks for tuning in. This week, I'm joined by a fellow podcast guest, the host of the Whitetail Advantage Podcast, Brett Boven. He joins me this week. Awesome conversation with Brett on our show. They actually invited me a few months ago to come on to the Whitetail Advantage Podcast. That's episode 120 of their show, if you're curious on checking that out. And I definitely wanted to return the favor to Brett. He's a great guy, very down to earth. You're just one of those relatable people that once you get to talking to him, you feel like you've known him forever. We talk about all sorts of stuff. We talk about hunting. We talk about the podcast. We talk about his time in law enforcement and being a first responder and the challenges that come with that. Like this conversation is just kind of, we just let it go wherever it takes us. And it's one of those that, like we try to bring to this show frequently, is just feels like you're sitting down here hanging out with us. And yeah, it's a really great conversation. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. Kicking off the housekeeping, one thing I do want to say, and this is just a reminder on kind of my policy on this show and as the show host. If you guys have listened to our episodes before, you know that I do not cuss, but I do not put restraints on my guests from being who they are on our show. I want that authenticity. I want them to be who they truly are on the show and everything. I want it to be authentic for you guys. And just plain and simple, Brett would be the first one to tell you this. He has a different vocabulary than I do. So if that bothers you, I'm sorry, but just wanted to throw that out there and give you guys a heads up if that is something that is important to you. So other than that, if this is your first time listening to a Fall Obsession podcast episode, thank you. And make sure that you hit that subscribe button, follow button, whatever they have up there for you guys. Turn those notifications on if that's an option. That way you guys know every week when we drop a new podcast episode. You can find us on all the major podcast platforms, YouTube and Carbon TV, Waypoint TV. We put podcast videos on the YouTube channel on Thursdays every week. So if you like to watch your podcasts, then you can go check it out on our YouTube channel. And we have a ton of other awesome content on that YouTube channel, as well as our other hunting shows and series, our films, our short form videos, all that kind of stuff. Check it out, guys. Go subscribe to the YouTube. Fallobsession.com is the website. All of our content filters through there. We are a hunting and outdoor media production company, so we have gear reviews, films, shows, podcasts, educational articles, wild game recipes, and lots more. So guys, go check out the website. Follow us on the social media pages wherever you are active on. Fall Obsession is probably active on there as well, so make sure that you guys are following along because we post daily hunting and outdoor content from across the country, relevant in a ton of different areas. And finally, if you guys have not checked out Carbon TV yet, you need to. Carbon TV is like Netflix for hunting, except it is free for you guys to stream. You can literally just click on it, download the app, whatever, and immediately start watching hunting shows, films, podcasts, all sorts of stuff on the Carbon platform from hundreds of different producers and creators. We at Fall Obsession produce 4 different shows on Carbon TV. This podcast, our staff-inspired video podcast series called Couch Chats, is on Carbon, as well as our 2 different hunting shows titled Texas Dirt and Midwest Mindset. Again, you can find all of those streaming on Carbon TV. Go download the app, put it on your smart TV, pull it up on your computer, whatever it might be, and start watching today. Stay tuned throughout the episode for discount codes from our sponsors on some awesome everyday hunting and outdoor gear that you guys can use out there. And with that, I'm done rambling. We're going to get Brett in here and we're going to have an awesome conversation with him. You guys are listening to another Fall Obsession podcast.
Oh, you got her, dude. She's down. Let's go.
Dude, I just shot a deer of a lifetime.
Freaking smoked him.
One with nature, and if you're a believer, one with God.
Definitely gets your heart pumping. Boy, you are in trouble.
Fall Obsession Podcast.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to another Fall Obsession podcast. This week, my guest is no stranger to a microphone. He's actually probably making me look bad because he's over there with, calm, cool, and collected and confident over there. So, Brett Boven from Whitetail Advantage Podcast, he's my guest this week. Welcome to Fall Obsession Podcast, man.
Thanks for having me, man. And yeah, last time we talked, we had you on the show and excited to be on your show now.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm getting to return the favor, or however you want to look at it, I guess. You guys had me earlier this year on y'all's show for episode 120, something like that, I think.
Yeah.
Talk about some Texas hunting and give me an opportunity to talk to some of your listeners about fall obsession. And yeah, I'm looking
Mhm.
forward to flipping the tables a little bit and chatting with you on your end too. So, and on that note, just to start things off, for our listeners that haven't checked out your show, who is Brett Boven and how did this all start for you?
Well, I've been hunting for 20 years now here, roughly in the state of Michigan, born and raised here. Really, I'm a short, simple guy. I went to college at Western, wanted to be a cop when I grew up. Then I got to live out that dream, and eventually uh, things happen. Mental stress gets to you in law enforcement. And one of my FTOs said that every cop's got a bucket and everyone fills their bucket at a certain time frame. My time frame was 7 years. So, but I'll say this myself, when I saw some traumatic things happen back to back and I wasn't able to process it the correct way. So I had to go reach out help and to help for my own sanity wise. So I took a year off of work. And through that time off, I really wanted to create. I love hunting. I love the outdoors. I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I mainly just been doing whitetail deer. And through that time off, I wanted to kick Whitetail Advantage back up. And through that time, I was assessing how it was going when I first started it off, and I didn't like how it was going. I was like, that sucked in my opinion. So I took a lot of notes from different places, from outdoor podcasts, comedy podcasts from all over the place, and YouTube shows and everything. And then I eventually came up with a good blueprint, and it's changed since then. We've been doing it now for a year plus, and we do a live show every Sunday and Tuesday. And on our show, we're unpolitically correct. I say it all the time, and we say whatever the fuck we want. And yeah, we just have fun. We love talking to guests from all around the country. And in my opinion, I assembled probably one of the best teams out there with Johnny, Dave, and Squatch. Johnny's former Army, Dave's former Army as well. Squatch is just a holy man. And honestly, I've only met Johnny in person. I haven't met Dave yet. We just have the schedules haven't lined up. Squatch is all the way out in New York. But I love those guys. They're part of my family now, and I'm glad they're a part of the show with me.
That's awesome, man. I want to you said a lot in just a little bit of time. I want to unpack some of that a little bit. And I recall from our interaction when we first got started and we did that episode on your show, you mentioned that you were in law enforcement and everything. And I'm down here still to this day. I'm a full-time firefighter is my job outside of the hunting industry. Um, what and without getting too specific, I'm curious because you talked about that bucket getting filled at around that 7 year mark and everything. Um, what kind of call volume were you experiencing as a law enforcement officer for that timeline to be applicable? Because you hear about people that, reach that point really, really early in their careers in busy cities and then maybe more rural areas or slower areas, right? Guys can go a full 20, 25 years and, they might be old, crusty and grumpy, but they're still kicking it along. What did that look like for you as far as the stress of the call volume itself?
Well, I worked the road and the jail. So I was at a county department.
Okay.
And so I got to see a lot of things from working the road and working the jail. And actually, the thing that eventually caused me to take a year off was an incident from the jail. I can get into detail about that. It's kind of gruesome, but I'll just say this: you can do what you want with it. I watched a guy basically eat his arm off,
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so that put me off for a year. But to answer your question more in depth, I was in a fairly busy department, and they put me in one of the busiest townships that the county has to offer. At least in my opinion, it is. So call volume was a lot. I mean, you could be soon, and I worked the afternoon shift, so it was
Mhm.
like 4:30 to 12:30, something like that. So as soon as you get on shift, you probably got 20 calls right on the board. It's like, oh fuck, where do I go now? And you just start working your way through it, going on. And then I'll say this though, I there was one night I didn't have a call the entire shift, nothing. And so I was just pulling traffic cars over left and right. Dispatch was getting pissed. Even my partners on the road, like, hey, is this motherfucker actually gonna go do something? Like, yeah, I'm doing pulling cars over. I'm bored. I remember my sergeant from the jail, he transferred to dispatch, and he sends me a text message. He says, call me. I said, yeah, what's up, buddy? He goes, will you quit fucking doing something? I'm getting tired of saying 1033 on a 101 and some shit like that. But yeah, the call volume was a lot. Also varied on the day as well. But uh, I've talked to buddies that work in lower populated cities, and they could probably crank it out to 30 years, whatever, till they retire,
Mhm.
because they maybe take one call. Or I'll say this: the call volume isn't the issue; it's the things that you're seeing on an individual call that
Mhm.
will mentally just fucking take you out.
Yeah.
And I've seen things that I haven't even told my wife yet. I don't even think I ever will, because it's so traumatizing. And eventually, someone you might see something that's like, well, shit, nope, I'm done. I have a buddy actually. He we graduated the police academy with, and he didn't even finish FTO phase because he saw so many incidents. He just called it.
Yeah. No, it takes mental resilience for sure, and a certain kind of person. And to your point, it's so for some folks it gets to a point where it's like, man, I can't do this. I have to do what's right for me, and it's not this anymore. And I understand that. I had about the as a career fireman, about the 4 year mark for me. Yeah, it was somewhere in there about the 4 year mark. That's when I had a bad call because we're paramedics too. I had a
Mm,
bad call involving like a 19-day-old baby. And like I had young kids myself that were a little bit older than that, but I just watched them go through that, infant stage and everything. And like that for me was my moment, and that jacked with me and messed up a bunch of stuff I had to get through and get over and that kind of stuff. So I was grateful to come out on the other side of it and still be able to keep doing the job and everything. But I say that just from the standpoint of like the mental health side of it can't go without regard,
mm.
when it comes to that kind of stuff. And you're exactly right. It's not necessarily the call volume can wear you down. I feel like just the constant grinding it and just you get beat down with it sometimes, but it's the stuff that you see and that you deal with for sure that takes a toll on you, which for me is where hunting in the outdoors plays a big role because that's also my chance to kind of decompress and get away from it a little bit and kind of process a lot of stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, anytime with like kids, I think I went on two or three calls with a kid. One of them sticks out the most because he was 18, I believe, and he's not even a quarter mile down the road. He crashes into a tree. The steering wheel is implanted halfway in through his head,
Hmm.
and his pit bull is dead in the backseat of the car. And yeah, and I loved hunting since I was growing up, and I knew the mental health of everything that involved with hunting, but just being outside, just being in nature and being one, it's just peaceful and it's just relaxing and soothing in so many ways. And I think growing up, I took that as I'm losing the word. I'm trying to think of, um, I took it for granted,
Hmm.
because now when I went into law enforcement, I really cherish those moments, because growing up, when we go out in the woods, it's like, oh, yep, I'm going out in the woods. I'm going to go hunt deer. Awesome. Great. But now growing up and things start adding, get more responsibility, you get wife, kids, and bills, and all this shit comes on top of it all. Now you really, on one side of hunting, how I look at it is you're going out there just to be, as a guy, as a family man, a married husband, and stuff like that. One side of hunting is just the peacefulness of sitting outside and relaxing and decompressing your brain and basically, in a way, turning it off in some sense.
Hmm. No, I couldn't agree more, man. That's spot on. How did you get into hunting? Has it always been a part of your life from day one, or was there a significant moment that kind of, got you in the woods?
My dad, he's a huge outdoorsman, huge whitetail deer hunter. I had grandparents that were into fishing, but my dad, he loved whitetail deer and he got me involved with it. I remember as a kid growing up, out and we moved to where I live now, and I'd be standing at the sliding glass door just waiting for dad to come in and like, hey dad, what'd you see or anything like that? He goes, I just saw a couple of does, and I'm just like, man, I can't wait to get out there. And then eventually my first time when I was able to go out there hunting, my dad wanted me to be there with him. And quick funny story about that is I was 12 years old, I believe, shot at a doe, perfect 20-yard shot, went right underneath her stomach. I'm bawling like a 3-year-old girl, just like, dang it, I practice and practice and practice, and I wanted this moment. And I look down, my dad's grabbed my arrow, he's climbing up my tree stand, and he says, Brett, why are you crying? I'm like, because I missed. I practiced and practiced, and I want to be great at this. He goes, Brett, that's hunting, but that's also bow hunting. Because in my family, we only bow hunt.
Hmm.
And he's like, you got to get used to it. He said, I've missed countless deer. You're going to hit deer and you're not going to find them. It's going to happen. We don't want that to happen, but it's going to happen. So then, like a week later, I was determined, like, practice, practice, practice even more. And like this little forker 4-point came around, and the exact same trail that she came up with stopped in the exact same spot. I dropped him and we went and found him and tracked him and got him. And yeah, just I'm so thankful for my dad to be able to introduce it to me. And man, I love this stuff so much. I think my wife gets kind of annoyed of how much I talk about it and how much I love it.
I'm in a similar boat, man. Yeah, she loves that I love it, but at the same time, I love it way more than anybody else in my house. So I live and breathe it practically. So
Yeah.
it's a staple for sure. And that's my dad got me into hunting as well and everything. And I can remember I've lived in Texas pretty much almost my whole life, but for when I was real little, like 5, 6 years old, we lived in Wyoming for like 4 years. And I think that was one of my earliest memories of my dad doing anything hunting related, because I wouldn't do anything with him, but I can remember him coming back to the house with some pheasants in his hand.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, I don't know why, but I'm inside the house looking out the window, and he's standing on the other side of the window holding him up so I can see him. I don't remember anything else other than that, but it's just stuff like that kind of sticks out in my mind. My dad's been a hunter for a long time, and same, he got me into it and got me started. So he
Yeah.
doesn't bow hunt though. I had to find that love kind of on my own, but um yeah, that's awesome that you guys are ingrained in not just hunting but archery too. So
Yeah. We created a couple of family laws that we don't, if you break it, you basically are going to be shunned in our way. Yeah. And if you break it, yeah, you're gonna get hazed, I guarantee it.
and archery's
Because
one of those, huh?
and yeah, archery's one of them. So my
Okay.
son's got some stuff to learn, and hopefully my daughter takes it apart. But yeah, my son hopefully gets in the same ballpark, and if he breaks one of those rules, he's gonna be banned.
You're out. Oh, that's
Yeah,
that's awesome. Is there a reason on that, or was that just his passion that he's kind of passed down?
that's just what he loved to do.
Yeah.
He grew up with recurves. I don't think he got into longbows, but I know he hunted with recurves and with fingertips, and that's how I started off. And
Yeah.
in my opinion, I think that's how everyone should start off practicing, is with fingertips and maybe recurve. But I never got into that. I started with fingertip, finger release before the thumb releases came about, and he just knows, just because learning from him and then doing my own thing now in hunting and archery, at least in my opinion, I'm not going to speak on my dad's, but I believe he believes the same thing I do. When it comes to archery hunting, there's so many things that can go wrong. And you got to get, in my opinion, you got to get within, like right now, I'm 31. I'm going on 20-year hunting. I'm now lethal. I feel comfortable lethal taking a lethal shot at 70, 75 yards.
Right.
But when I first started, when I was up to like 20, 25, maybe 40 was my max. So you got to get this deer generally within a 40-yard distance to shoot at a deer. And I can tell you basically every detail with every deer that I've shot and just the enjoyment through this all. And I don't know, man. I just love it. And I'm not going to say, I'm like, yeah, no, you can't shoot with a gun, this and that. But you just, my dad and I are going to look at him. You shot with a gun, didn't you? Yeah. Okay. Okay. We see ya. Yeah.
Yeah, don't worry that I stuck this arrow in the bullet hole right there. Yeah, don't worry about that.
Exactly.
But
One of the other ones is we I so we have to wait. So if like a doe comes out, we have to wait a couple minutes to see if any like yearlings come with her.
Mm.
And then if they do, that doe is officially off limits.
I see.
And I understand, yes, that through the gestational period and at that time period, that if the mom was to be gone to be passed on or die, whatever the case may be, that they are old enough to take care of themselves. But it's just something that I wouldn't feel right doing that. I don't know. It's just me personally. I would feel wrong doing it. And so we just kind of made it like a family rule, law. They, just let them go. And I kid you not, I'm like I said, it's my 20th year hunting. I think I have yet to put my tag on a doe.
Really?
I've shot two, and I never found them. But I just can't get the deer up here in Michigan, man. In my opinion, they're fucking Einsteins of the woods. Like I can blink, and they're looking at me 70 yards away, and they're like, "Yep, nope, fuck that," and running away.
Wow.
I don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I have I wouldn't, it's probably not as hard and true of a policy as what you have and what you've grown up hunting in and everything as far as does and everything, but I I call it being management minded down here, and some of my fall obsession peeps that are listening to this might kind of crack up because my quote unquote management mindedness has definitely gotten the better of me over the years, and I've probably let some deer walk that I should have shot. But I want to kill mature deer, and
Hmm.
that doesn't just only apply to bucks either. So a lot of our does travel in groups, and typically I will try to take some time to analyze that group and see, okay, who's with who here? What doe has babies? What doe is like that, that mature older one in the group? Who's kind of the young and up and comer that might not have babies yet? I kind of try to analyze some of that before I take a crack at one because, I not like I said, not that it's a hard and fast rule for me, but I don't want to. I don't like shooting a deer with a fawn on her either, man. Like that, feels
Yeah.
feels weird. Now, granted, I know there's some people that are listening to this podcast that might be like, screw this and turn it off right now because they're like, if it's brown, it's down.
Yeah.
But to each their own. I'm
Yeah.
not here to criticize or anything. But
Hmm.
um, you mentioned earlier you were talking about how when you kind of gave us your intro and we're talking about, your journey beyond law enforcement, and you mentioned kicking the podcast back off.
Hmm.
I want to ask you where the Whitetail Advantage podcast started, and more specifically, like what made you want to start a podcast? Because you're talking to a guy that knows good and well the challenges that come with that and everything, and it takes a lot of dedication and there's a lot of learning too. So what made you initially want to have a podcast?
I just love talking to people, and I think it came from my law enforcement side because I think that's part of why I went into law enforcement because I don't like bullies and this and that. But anyways, I just love talking to people and getting to learn their story and their background. And I love to see if I can I call it my own personal tactical toolbox. If I can take one thing from somebody and put it into my own game,
Hmm.
then I feel like I'm improving my own way. So Whitetail Advantage eventually, it started off 2019, 2020, somewhere in that ballpark. I can't exactly remember. And it eventually it started off as Guardian Archery. And then it went on for about 12 episodes. And then I took a year off from work. And through that time off, I was trying to obviously make myself better. So I didn't really spend a whole lot of time with Whitetail Advantage or Guardian Archery at the time. And through that time off, when I was getting close to the end of my year, I really wanted to dive back into it. I wanted to do something different, in my opinion, do something different, create a different podcast, go a different route with it, and create our own little norm that we like to call it.
Hey guys, sorry to cut y'all off from the conversation. We'll get back to it in just a second. But first, I want to tell you guys about Hoot Camo. Hoot Camo is one of the best camouflage brands out there for the blue collar hunter. The prices, you can't beat them. The patterns are extremely versatile. They work in so many different environments. I have worn Hoot Camo hunting whitetails, hogs, and turkeys down here in the hardwoods, the mesquites, the scrub brush of Texas. I've worn it in the flatland plains of eastern Colorado hunting mule deer. I've even worn it in the mountains of central Idaho hunting elk. It works in so many different places. It is extremely high quality gear, extremely warm, holds up well against the elements. You cannot beat it. Go to hootcamo.com, use the code FallObsession15 on your next order, no matter how big or small it is, and check out everything that Hoot Camo has on there for you guys.
And that's when I eventually, like I said, I was listening to other podcasts. Like, what do I like about this one? What do I like about this one? What I don't like about this one? And while that year was off, that's when I really was like, all right, I have like a whole booklet of all of my notes that I was taking. I was like, all right, I want to change the name. And in my opinion, it came down to name that I had to start off with a rebranding the name, get a new logo and everything. Because when I look at, like, for instance, Knock on Archery, when you see its logo, you know that's Knock on Archery.
Mm-hmm.
You see the name itself, that's obviously archery related type content. So I was like, well, I'm a huge whitetail guy. I want to give people advantages out in the woods. So I had like 50 names I wrote down, and the one that stuck was Whitetail Advantage. And I came with the logo, and then I was like, all right, I want to do this, this, and that. And when I first started off, we were doing like 4 episodes a week, and we are doing live shows, this and that. And eventually we were kind of like, I think we did 4 episodes for about 3 to 4 months. And then we were like, all right, I don't like this. And we started tweaking it more and more. And then eventually it turned into what we have now. And we really love the step that we have now. I highly doubt it's going to change, but yeah, we love where we've become at now and ended.
4 episodes a week is a lot, man.
Yeah, we were cranking them out when we first started off. And it wasn't that we were getting tired. We were solely only doing a state a week. And then we were getting like 4 guests on for that state. And then we started noticing throughout the episodes, it was becoming the same material. And by like the 3rd episode, the 4th episode that week, it's like, well, I've already known that. Tell me something different. So we're like, oh, maybe the audience is probably thinking the same thing. So then we started like, all right, let's adjust this here and there and move things2 around. And let's take a couple days here and we'll focus on these things during those days. And yeah, now we pushed it to only doing 2 live shows a week. We
Gotcha.
talked about pushing in a third one, but we like what we have right now.
Yeah. No, it's a great format too. And I like how you're trying to get some variety and perspective from, like you just mentioned, from every state out there, every area out there that's hunting deer and everything. And that was kind of your pitch to me when you invited me to come on your show was, hey, let's talk about whitetail hunting in Texas and what it's like. And so I came on there with probably my skewed private land version of whitetail hunting in Texas, right? And I don't know what kind of feedback you got off of that, but I'm not much of a public land guy. So if that was an expectation, sorry.
Oh man, it was loved it. That was probably one of our highest downloaded episodes. I think I had to check it
Oh,
out.
no kidding.
Yeah,
I did not know that. Well, it blows my mind that people want to want to listen to that. I guess you put the word Texas in there and, and people are in. So that's probably
Everything's bigger in
oh
Texas, man. So you hear
yeah.
Texas, well, someone from Texas, I gotta listen to that fucking shit.
Exactly. What have been so having all of these guests on from all over and everything, a heavy emphasis obviously on whitetail deer. What have what have been your big takeaways from it? What has changed in your own style of hunting, your own tactics that you apply in the woods, if anything, from having these folks on your show over time and hearing what they have to say about whitetails?
Yeah, that's a good question.
I probably should have prepped you for that one.
No, no, that's a great one. I love being put on the spot because I put my guests on the spot. Man, that's a great question. I think uh what would I say? Probably I'm trying to think. There was a guy from Arkansas, I believe it was, and he something with morning hunting. I'm drawing a blank right now, but he really focused on oh, that's what it was. With morning hunting, being making sure that you're really in the stand way before that first glimmer of light kind of comes up in that stand. And I was getting like I'm not a morning person, and everyone jokes about it, and I don't I don't mind it because I can't stand the mornings. So me in morning hunting, we're not best friends. So I think I've gone out last year morning hunting maybe 4 times, but also in my area, it's not a morning setup, but I can
Yeah.
make excuses whatever I want, but I just don't morning hunt. um, but he said like so I think first glimmer of light here and where I was at was like 7 o'clock in the morning. He goes, make sure you're in your stand at least a good hour before that. Cause I'm like, well, okay. And then he's like, just make sure that you're in your stand, everything good to go an hour before that first glimmer of light because you don't want to be fumbling through the woods with some light because then you're going to scare all your deer away. So
Mhm.
just making sure that you're really prepared in the morning hunts if you're going to go out there to have everything set up that even though if it's pitch black still, you're still not you're going to be fine because if you go out there with just that little bit of light because that's that prime time where deer are moving around and if you're out there at that time then you're screwed, you're not going to see shit.
Yeah. No, that's for sure applicable. I when we go out, we have our hunting land is, an hour and a half from where I live. So when we go out there, it's for days at a time. We have a camper out there and everything that we stay in. So we hunt mornings and evenings. And yeah, when the season starts, I'm all gung ho. I don't mind waking up in the morning, but a few weeks in, you're like, huh, I got to set my alarm. I got to wake up at whatever time again and get out there before light. And I definitely try to get in the stand well before light, but I had a reality check a little bit. Just again, it was kind of one of those deals where I was just going through the motions. It was, halfway through the season. I was tired. Just, I was out there to hunt, but I was tired at the same time. And I'm hunting in a tree stand. I know, like, I know I have a good shot at this particular 8 point that I'm trying to kill coming in. And um but just the way the stand's set up, like leaves are starting to drop, trees are getting more bare. So it's like, all right, you got to be careful with your movements. And of course, I'm in Texas where we don't have any tall trees, so you're 12 feet up at best, right?
Right.
So I'm trying to, I'm like, all right, I'm going in there knowing I need to be when it starts getting light, I need to be standing up with my bow in my hand, ready to shoot something. That way, I don't have to get ready. And I get in there, I sit down, and I just get zoned out. And next thing I know, I'm still sitting down. It's cracking daylight, and he's 20 yards standing there looking at me. And I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. So I'm like trying to figure out how I can stand up. And he was in that clearing. He just walked across the clearing. He was in the clearing for probably 30 seconds. And if I'd been standing with my bow in my hand, it would have been a slam dunk. But he just walked across the clearing is all he did, and I couldn't get stood up with my bow drawn back fast enough to get an arrow, and I was so mad at myself. I was like, I told myself not to do this, and I still did it.
Right.
We never learn sometimes, I feel like.
No, we don't. Because I was in the same boat last year where it's like, all right, I'm gonna go out there. It's getting close to start of the rut. All right. Because like you said, on opening day, I have a tradition. I can't do it this year, but I take the full day off. I'm out there from sunrise to sunset.
Mhm.
Then after like that first week, it's like, oh fuck. I don't want to wake up early in the morning to go do that. And then so the rut comes around, I'm like, well, I have to now because they can be moving whenever. And sure as shit, I'm getting in the tree stand. And what happens? One of the bucks that was new to the area, he's right there as I'm walking, cresting the hill, getting close to my stand. He's just standing there. I'm like, son of a bitch. I slept in for like maybe 20 more minutes because I just wanted to stay in that warm bed.
Yep.
And next thing I know, I'm like that monster buck that I've been kind of after, or I knew about him the day before. So he was like new. But yeah, I was like, son of a bitch. Just wake the fuck up and get down in the stand. Nope, we don't learn. We don't learn. I've been
No.
there. Last year was
Eh,
a testing season though for me too.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. We all have those, man. I feel like the last 2 years for me especially have been pretty there's been a lot of growth and a lot of lessons learned the hard way. I had another deer that I launched an arrow at actually, and I never found beautiful 8 point, and just made me sick to my stomach. But it was one of those deals where I didn't like I had ranged everything when I got into the stand. I knew how far the trail he was on was, but he was moving quickly and I had to stop him and I didn't have time to get a quick range on him before I launched my arrow. I had to guess. I was like, he's at 45. And I had just watched a video on TikTok or Instagram or something about so I'll back up. I have a habit with archery, and it started when I shot competitively like 10 years ago. I would always come down from the top down into my target and everything. And if I went too low, I just had a mental block where I couldn't pull up. Like I couldn't pull up into my target. I had to let back down and reset and start over. And that's translated a little bit to hunting. Just I have this habit of starting high and then coming down. And this guy in this video was talking about how, well, if you start below your target and come up into it on a whitetail, it's like you're more naturally going to just hold a little bit lower, like top of the heart, bottom of the lungs in that area. And if that deer drops, you're still going to probably get that double lung hit, and you're more naturally going to hold lower. And I just watched that video like 2 days before, and on this freaking buck, just I'm like, oh, 45, draw back, come down from on top, launch. He was at 41 and he ducked a little bit, so I hit him in no man's land and he goes
Oh
running
man.
off with my arrow in him. And I was so mad at myself. It's like as soon as I released the arrow, it's like everything was in slow motion. And I was just like, I mean, it's going high. Like I'm watching this arrow soar in slow motion. My brain's just thinking it's going to hit high. It's going to hit high. And I'm praying it goes over his back. Just give me a clean miss. Like if it's going high, give me a clean miss. Nope. Smack takes off. I'm like, you're kidding me, dude. So I learned that one the hard way too. I was like, so it's been stuff like that has accumulated over the past couple years, and hopefully, I'm hoping this year I can apply all this stuff I claim to have learned, right, and
Right.
actually be a better hunter. But we'll see.
It takes those moments like that to like like when your parents tell you to stick a fork in an electric outlet. Now you learn.
Never do that
It
again.
touches
Yeah.
hot pan. Now you know.
Yeah. Hey, folks, if you guys are in the North Texas area like I am, then you need to go to Bear River Archery and Pro Shop in Van Alstyne, Texas. Justin and the guys up there have an incredible operation set up. They will take great care of you and all of your archery needs. They are the official bow shop in North Texas, a Fall Obsession. I love going there, and I'm picky. If you guys know me, I am very selective on who I let work on my bow. I will let Justin work on my bow. They do great stuff. Check out Bear River Archery and let them know that Fall Obsession sent you.
It
Just
takes those moments.
gotta learn it the hard way. Yeah.
Heck yeah.
And that's one of the things like I, I definitely with having this platform and this podcast, I try to put a lot of emphasis frequently on how I'm just a normal dude with normal problems because at the end of the day, there's nothing special about me or the way I hunt. I'm just a dude that has a microphone and puts an episode out every week.
You're famous.
I'd beg to differ on that. Um, I wanted to ask you, still talking about the podcast, what what are some of the biggest challenges, I guess, that you have faced having a podcast? Because you, at the time of recording this, you guys got 156 episodes out of the Whitetail Advantage podcast. What have been some big challenges in making that happen and getting to this point?
Getting quality guests,
Mm,
that's one. Cause you get some guests that might come on a show where they just they'll answer like yes, uh-huh.
yeah.
And they don't, it's really hard to get something from them.
Oh no, I
Yeah.
know 100%. I those are challenging as a guest, you because you're feeling like you're having to do, or a host, I should say, you're having to do more work. You're having
Yeah, it
to
takes a lot
steer
on
the
you.
conversation more. I know exactly what you mean. Those are
Yeah.
challenging for sure.
And
Yeah.
then just making sure that you do all the editing right, do the and make sure it's all correct and making sure you have everything set up and lined up. And I'm a very attention to detail type guy, law enforcement. My dad, even growing up, instilled that into me at a young age. Attention to detail, attention to the small things.
Hmm.
And that just carried me on obviously through my life. And now I've created my own little calendar, whatever you want to fucking call it, of like, all right, this day I gotta do this and this day and this and that with the show and stuff like that. And make sure like, all right, 2 week advance notice with that show coming up. And it's just like a mental note. I have like everything in my calendar and stuff like that. And so making sure just the guests come on the show, we have fun and relax and lay back. We always do our best to make sure the guests feel comfortable. I always meet every guest before the actual live show to like answer questions that they might have, work out any technical issues, stuff like that, and just kind of give a quick rundown of the show. And I always tell guests, and I have like this email I set it to them, and in it it says if we don't conduct a live show, they'll meet and greet before the actual live show within a week to 2 weeks, then we're gonna have to cancel and reschedule because we do a live show. We owe it to everyone that watches to make sure everything is doing great and stuff like that. Honestly, things are gonna fucking come up. So we'll
Hmm.
run with it if we can. But as long as just people communicate with me, I'm an open book. Just talk to me
Yeah.
and we can work something out. Other than that, really, the challenges I've kind of at least done my best to put on small issues because now I've been doing it for so long. Obviously, something might come up, but if I have an idea generally what issues might come up down the road, audio wise, electrical wise, technical side, all that shit. I have general ideas and on stuff like that and how to quick fix it and stuff like that. But obviously, some things can still pop up where it's like, well, fuck, I didn't expect that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. First time for everything for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. As you yeah, as you do it more, you definitely get more comfortable, more in your routine and that kind of stuff. I actually I did not do a whole lot of prior conversations with like first time guests and stuff on the show prior to coming on your show. And when you did that with me, I took a page out of your book with that. And for some of the guests that we've had on the past couple months, I've made a point to have a phone call or something beforehand with them, some sort of communication other than just email or text to,
Yeah.
kind of help break the ice and do the same thing, answer some questions and stuff. Hope I don't sound too hypocritical because I totally did not do that with you coming on this
No.
for this episode. But I was like, yeah, we talked for an hour or whatever on your show, so we'll be all
Right.
right. But I have done that with some guests, especially the ones who are new to podcasts that haven't been on podcasts before.
Mhm.
That's been a point I've been trying to make for sure. So I think that's smart. But
Yeah, it was we weren't doing it at first, and then we realized I think by episode like 20 or something like that, we were running into issues where they were having technical issues and stuff like that. So that's why we actually took 2 out of the 4 days away to focus on meet and greets, to talk to them before the show, work out all the downloading and stuff like that that might come up. That way, all that shit's taken care of right away.
Yeah.
And then that way, at least we say hi. And it actually, even in that meet and greet, I have it booked where people can go on our calendar app and book it when they want with us. It works for their schedule. And I set it for like 30 minutes, but reality only takes like 5 to 10.
Mhm.
Only because I try not to, even in those meetings, I don't try to learn a whole lot about you right away because I want to save the authenticity of it for the actual live show. So
Yeah.
it's more just like saying, "Hey, how's it going?" And like obviously like the first meet and stuff like that type questions, and then just kind of work on the technical and the actual show and stuff like that. Outside of that, nope, all that stuff for the live show.
No, I've definitely had to save. I've cut people off mid-sentence before, like, nope, I don't want to talk about it yet. Like, let's save it. Let's not get into it right now. Now's not the time. This is for the podcast. And I've also had those times where, like, we were chatting for a minute before we start recording here this evening, and I I've had times where I'm chatting with a guest or I'm getting stuff set up and they're talking about something. I'm like, I wish I was freaking recording right now.
All
This
right.
needs to be in the podcast right here. So yeah, it's you kind of gotta juggle that, but I feel like I'm getting honed in on uh yeah, keeping people on the right track when they're not familiar with podcasts. I've had a guest before actually. Um, like first and to my knowledge, only podcast he's ever done. This was a little while ago, but um, I didn't do a good job of like prepping him on, hey, we're going to talk before, after the episode, we'll talk for a minute after, and going through all that. So like as I'm wrapping up, at the end I told him, hey, thanks for coming on the show, and he was like, yep, you bet, and he just hung up right, right then and there. He was just gone before I even wrapped it up or gave my conclusion. I was like, oh well, all right, that happened.
Right. Oh man.
So yeah, again, I'm really good at learning stuff the hard way. So
We actually had a guest, because like you said, you had to stop him like, no, I don't want to talk about that. But he caught my ear and with a I'm like, because his name was Wyatt Ford. He's from Prince Edward Islands. And was like, yeah. And he said it so quickly I couldn't stop him. He said, we don't have any whitetail deer, but we had one whitetail deer here for about 5 seconds. So I'm like, motherfucker, now I have to ask this damn question. I have to know this story before the actual live show. And
yeah.
I didn't want to. So he told me this story. This deer like swam from one of the islands to their main island, and it was there for like 5 minutes and it got hit by a semi. So
Oh my word.
they had a one deer population for like 5 minutes. I was like, damn it, why wasn't I recording for this? I told him like you had to save that. You have to tell that story again on the actual live show. I'm gonna pretend like I didn't know it, but
Yeah, and that's always the hardest thing is when you're trying to, how do I organically bring this up again to make the listener feel like I'm where we hadn't talked about this before, right?
exactly.
That
Really, that was really the only time where I was like, all right, how do I pretend like this was new? Really, that was really that's been the only time. Other than that, yeah, we've done our best. Like, no, stop. But
yeah.
yeah, he beat me to the punch where I couldn't tell him no.
That's funny. That's awesome, man. Um, I want to ask you too, because you mentioned toward the beginning, how the guys that you're normally recording with and everything, how, as far as meeting them and interacting with them in person, it's been extremely limited. How did you get connected with these guys to be able to build this relationship and start doing these frequent podcasts and everything with them like this?
I'll start off with Johnny. We were on the Gilly Puck team, the pro staff team with them, and I saw his message. He said, "Is anyone from the Southwest Michigan area?" I said, "Yeah, that's me." And we found out what city we lived in. Come to find out, we're like 20 minutes down the road from each other.
Oh, nice.
And so I actually had Johnny on the show. So him and I were talking for a while here and there, and I needed a guest for one day. So I sent him a message, "Hey, you want to come on the show?" He said, "Yeah." And then he was on the show, and then him and I continued to talk after the show. Then I think Dave was on next, I can't remember. It was Dave or Squatch. Um, I needed another guest. I sent Dave a message and he said, yeah, I'll come on. And so we were talking more and more about that. And he came on the show, and then him and I stayed in contact after the show as well. Then I had Squatch on coming on the show to represent New York. I think it was like episode 130 or some shit like that. And then him and I were talking more and more. And then eventually I asked Johnny, like, hey, do you want to officially be a part of the Whitetail Advantage team? He said, yeah, man, I'd love to. And then he was on, and eventually Dave was watching more of the live shows and interacting with us. And so eventually I started actually texting him more and more. And I eventually reached out to him and asked him the question. He said, yeah. Then I did basically the same thing with Squatch. And next thing I know, our group text just, we text like a bunch of girls. I swear to God. Like it's 1 second, there's nothing going on for like a day. Then the next day, it's like bing, 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 bing. I'm like, shut the fuck up.
That
A
sounds
bunch
like
of
a firehouse group chat.
oh my gosh. I think one day I got so annoyed with it and I didn't realize you can mute notification for like the day or whatever. I think I was at work. I took my phone and I fucking threw it against the room. I was like, fuck this phone. I even took my Apple Watch. I did the same thing.
Oh my gosh.
But yeah, they they are on the show with me every day. I can't say thank you enough to them because they come on the show and they help me out with questions where I might not think of, or each one of them brings a different aspect to the show, and then that's what I love about it even more. We haze with each other all the time. That's part of our brand, if you want to say that. And I, they're brothers to me. So, like I said, even though I haven't met Johnny yet in person, and he's in Michigan too, so he's only about an hour away from me. Just timing wise, just hasn't been a chance. And obviously, Squatch is in New York. I'm not going to take that 6 hour drive all the way out there to see that ugly fuck. But no,
Well,
yeah, I love him, man.
that's awesome, man. That like you said, it adds to the show, and that definitely having that dynamic and having a group of guys with that level of commitment to be with you every time or just about every time, that level of frequency and everything, that's incredible because that I feel like that's what a lot of people, I say a lot of people, at least our listener base, what they are looking for, right, is just that authenticity, that relatability and everything. And when you achieve that even more when you have a bigger group of guys, I feel like, and the listener can just feel like they're sitting there in hunting camp. I don't have a designated co-host or anything, and obviously it's just you and me on here right now. But whenever I do have the opportunity to bring somebody else in on the conversation, or I've even had specific guests coming on the show before where it's been like, hey, you are also really good and really, really well versed in, whitetail management and habitat management. And we're having a guest on that's their language. So come on the show because I know this person is going to ask questions that I'm not, and that, man, good for y'all. That's a good dynamic to have on a show for sure.
Yeah, and when we officially got the group text message, honestly, I think it was the first day where it was awkward. After that, it was like we knew each other like our whole entire lives. It
Mm.
was weird how all of a sudden we get us all together and just texting. We're like, oh yeah, fuck you, and this, and we're joking with each other, hazing with each other, stuff like that. And then you bring it on, and now we've done it so many episodes with each other on the show. Um, it just brings that different level of the word you want to maybe use is comfort.
Hey guys, Trophy Edits is a Fall Obsession podcast partner. We all have mounts on our walls that represent a significant moment, a significant harvest in the woods for each and every one of us, and photographs can do the same. I'm sure you guys have pictures from years past, hunting with loved ones or being in the woods with family and friends that also represent those big moments. And what Trophy Edits does is they showcase those moments for you guys, just absolutely make your pictures explode and to the level that you guys can put them on the wall and also have that memory forever represented in your home, your office, your man cave, whatever it might be. Give Trophy Edits a chance to do the work for you guys. And again, they make those pictures just absolutely awesome with their professional team of editors. So go to Trophy Edits website. The link is in the podcast description. That lets them know that you guys came from us, and use the code FALLOBSESSION at checkout to save you guys some money.
Because
Mhm.
our big thing is we like to call it the electron campfire. We want everyone to feel like they're a part of the show. Everyone feels like they can haze with us, and we haze right back with them too. And there's hazing between me and the co-hosts, Johnny, Dave, and Squatch, and that's just what we do. And we just want everyone to feel like, all right, we sit back, relax, get beer, and watch the show. And it's not just listening to whitetail deer. All right, when in the summertime, you gotta make sure you put this much food out and this and that. And yes, we get into that, but at the same time, we can go 10 minutes where it's like, you're an asshole. Well, you're an asshole. And don't get me wrong, we have our arguments, don't get me wrong, but we can literally go the next day and like, oh, what's up, brother?
Yeah.
So yeah, yeah.
No, that's a great dynamic to have, man, for sure. Like I said, I feel like that's relatable to the listener. I look at it as two in the hunting and outdoor podcast world. There's two realms, and sometimes they overlap a little bit, but there's the people who are looking for a good quality, just down to earth, authentic show. And then there's also the people that will seek out episodes with, bigger name guests, more of your, larger folks in the industry, I'd say, um, because they're interested in, an episode with them or something specific they have to say or whatnot. I feel like there's a balance between the two, but and like I said, sometimes they overlap, but those seem to be the two things that are typically what folks are looking up. Your normal everyday hunter, that is. So
Yeah. And that was one of my things when I started Whitetail Advantage back up again, where I was like, I want this to feel like the average Joe blue collar worker show. And like, I want everyone to comment. I want everyone to be able to feel like they're actually really a part of this while we progress through this thing. And I wasn't where I was against having like Michael Waddell or Lee Lakowski on the show. I'm like, I'm not against if I'd have him on the show, don't get me wrong. But I want to talk to the guy that's in law enforcement working 4 out of the 7 days, whatever, and he only gets to go hunt one day, or the guy that's in construction where he can barely go out hunting and he's he's just out there to hunt and kill a deer. He doesn't give two shits what the score is. And
mhm.
I want to know what their tactics are doing and stuff like that. And to be able to learn from people like that, because I like listening to Michael Waddell's and their and the if you want to use the term professional hunter, their stories.
Mhm.
But when you look at them, at least in my opinion, they get to go to all these amazing places. Yes, it's awesome to hear those stories, but how could the fuck can I relate them hunting on a huge giant ranch to my own 80-acre private property where it's basically a piece of shit? So it's like I want to know from average Joe hunter, what are they doing with 5 acres? What are they doing with 100 acres? But it's crap. So like just to learn what they're doing and how I can apply it to myself and just talking to them, that was one of the main goals that we set out to do.
Yeah, I mean, you just hit the nail on the head, being able to apply that to yourself, right? Because they're dealing with similar circumstances, right? And they're coming up with solutions that are more obtainable for
Mm-hmm.
for you. So yeah, 100%. I like to think that we have a healthy mix of, kind of all realms and genres of the hunting industry and the guests that are out there. But yeah, I love sitting down with folks that I can relate to and just, yeah, talk hunting. So,
Same here.
which we haven't even freaking done because I keep asking you questions about your podcast. But I mean, as a
Go.
podcast host myself, I'm curious. But man, tell me about. I mean, you have a whitetail hunting specific podcast. So tell me about whitetail hunting in your area of Michigan. And I mean, you mentioned said an 80-acre piece that you have.
Yeah, 80 acres.
Yeah.
If you want to call it, technically, yes, it's 80 acres, but 40 of the acres is a giant corn soy plot field that the owner of the property leases out to one of the farmers in the area. And the other 40 acres is a lot of deep valleys and very hard places to hunt.
Hmm.
So really that 40 acres of open woods, yeah, you can hunt the edge line, the tree line, like obviously majority of hunters do with that type of setup.
Yeah.
But when you move into the woods, yeah, you can say you have 40 acres, but in my opinion, on that, I only have like 10 acres that I could really hunt, and I
Hmm.
have to manipulate it in my own way.
Yeah.
And I've been doing it for 20 years and it's still kicking my ass.
So what are you doing to try and manipulate it? What's that look like when you say that?
I try to, my big thing is I try to look at our property and what it offers and what it doesn't offer. What's the pros and cons of that piece of property? And I've walked that thing countless times, so I know that piece the back of my hand. But outside of knowing my property, I say my property because I've been hunting it forever, but it's not technically mine. I've learned the surrounding properties in the area and what they've been doing in the recent years, what they've done in the past, and using the landscape of our property and figuring out what's going on the neighbor's property and how it's going to affect the deer on our property. And granted, there's still pieces of the property where they're just going to naturally move through because it's just an amazing piece of the property where they have to. For instance, what I call it as my rut location. It's a little circle opening, and it's at the bottom of a hill. And at that point, it's like a little pinch point, if you want to call it that. And
Mhm.
it leads to a cornfield in that area, open field area, bedding area, even more. And then to the east, it's a giant pond for drinking water and stuff like that. And then the surrounding little part of our property that I'm on, it's just bedding everywhere.
Yeah.
So it's extremely challenging to hunt it during the wind. And I have my own personal take on scents, but really how I've looked at it is the bucks are going to be bedding on one side of the hill, the does are going to be bedding on the other side. So it's like, well, do I want to be hunting, focusing on the does, the bucks? How do I want to work with the wind today? And just trying to move the deer. Basically, I want to train them like cattle, if that makes sense. I want
Yeah.
to find a way that where they're moving to in the most. And one year I think I have them covered, and then the next thing you know, they're moving a different route through that area. I'm like, shit. And you constantly got to adjust. And at this point, I think I've got a good game plan for this year going into it, because my goal is to break the Michigan state record book, whitetail deer. I think I could have done it last year, but I couldn't get the shot off at him. He was at 55 yards, but there was some brush in between. And so this year I made it a goal where I'm going to do my best to break the state record. And
Nice.
I'm out there working on it.
What is the state record?
I think the one I'm after right now is, what was it? 183 and some change, something like that. I believe.
Nice.
I think that was
It's a
the
hammer of a
typical or
deer.
non-typical. I can't remember. But yeah,
That's
the
a
one I
ham.
saw last year, it would have broken it.
That's insane, man. Wow.
Yeah.
What's your biggest deer to date so far?
At the time when we gutted him, he was 144. We haven't got him scored since.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Still a stud deer for sure. You
Oh,
you
yeah.
you cracked the door open, so I'm gonna ask. You said your personal take on scents.
Oh, yeah.
What's your personal take on scents? I'm gonna nail that one down real quick before we get wrapped up or anything.
I think it's a load of shit.
Okay.
I really do. Because, and I'm just solely speaking on my hunting experience. Everyone's got their own thing. But when I'm out in the woods, I'll say this, for example, I got two examples for you perfectly. When I'm hunting the corn lot, the corn food plot, and I can hunt that with any wind because the deer are just going to be moving from any direction out and where I hunt in that piece. So I can get away with any wind. But when I'm in my rut location, yeah, I want the wind kind of going in a certain direction. But at the end of the day, like, I don't get two shits. The wind can literally be blowing into that buck's bedding area, and I think I can get away with it. Last year, the wind it was a northwest wind blowing right into the buck's bedding area, and sure as shit, a giant buck, 8 point buck. He probably would have scored 140. Not a lot of mass or anything like that. He just was just wide, and he's right underneath my stand.
Hmm.
And he's walking. He gets up to a tree, and I thought his head was behind the tree, so that's when I started moving around to get a shot off at him. He looks up at me, runs up 5 yards, stands there and looks at me. And then it's like, well, I don't want to take the shot off now. Anyways, long story short, he ran off. I never got a shot off him again. So in my opinion, right there, I've had numerous times where deer just came from where the wind was blowing and they give two shits. And he's right underneath my stand.
Hmm.
And I didn't use any scent thing or anything. The only thing I do when it comes to scent control is I wash all my clothes in the washer with some laundry scent killer stuff. And then I just leave it out in the open air. And
Yeah.
that's all I do. I don't even when I go out in the woods, I don't even spray anything on me or anything like that. I
Yeah.
still have deodorant when I'm from work because I have to burn PTO when I'm going out in the woods. So yeah, I, that's just my take on it.
That's interesting. I'm not going to I'm not going to sit here and say, "Oh yeah, that makes sense," or "I agree with you," because I'm just the kind of guy that I need to see the results for myself, right? In the
Exactly. Yeah.
field to believe that. And based on the last couple years and one stand in particular, I either feel like they've winded me or I just suck that bad as a hunter. One or the other, because I've had plenty of deer and does in particular bust me in that particular spot, and
Mhm.
I guess I hadn't cracked the code yet. But I was curious because, like I said, you threw that out there, and I was like, oh, let's dive into this real quick.
Let's
So
open that can of worms. Yeah.
yeah,
And I'm not afraid to say it. I say it all the time, man. I, I just don't believe in it because and I even read this study back when I was in college where what was it? There's a German Shepherd police dog out of Wisconsin, and I think a white-tailed deer's nose was just like 1,000 more scent receptors in the nose, more than the German Shepherd, the average dog. So just barely more scent receptors in the dog. And they took this dog and they took three people. The first one went out there. They made him walk about 100 yards with nothing, scent control or anything like that. He just walked down in his blue jeans, walked out there, and it took him X seconds to find him. Then they did this one for another guy where he washed his clothes like I do. Found him like 0.35 seconds later.
Hmm.
Then they did the same thing with a third guy. He did head to toes, everything. Showered, deodorant, washed his clothes, did the spray, literally everything. Found him 1 second later. So, like, if a German Shepherd can find this dog can find this person, and it's only taking him like one more second longer, then how's a white-tailed deer gonna be any different? He's still gonna smell you, whether you're doing it or not, is how I read it.
yeah,
So, and the deer they're extremely smart, they're extremely adaptive, they're designed to live.
hmm
So I think it's not like I don't take scent of serious. I do try to play the wind, and I'm just out there just willy nilly with it all. But scent control, I'd say this is my least concern when it comes out into the woods and hunting. I'll say that.
gotcha. No, it's definitely something to think about. It's so interesting to hear all the different theories and perspectives. I mean, and this goes back to talking about just what you learn from talking to so many different people from different places on a podcast or whatever. But I'm trying to rack my brain and remember because we had after deer season, we had Don Higgins and Dr. Grant Woods, two very well respected, whitetail and habitat management folks and biologists on our show to talk about that very kind of stuff. And if I claimed that one of them said that one of them did say this, and if I claimed it was one versus the other, I'd probably get it wrong because they were back-to-back weeks on the show. So I'm trying to think on who said it, but I have to go back and look. It's 216 and 217, I think, of our podcast. But one of them's like talking about moon phases, basically
Mhm.
just said it's a load of baloney. Like
Oh, yeah.
yeah, that like it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
And that was the first person that had just blatantly thrown that out there. And so we dove into that and everything on the show. And now I'm gonna have to go back and figure out which which one of them said it because I don't want to claim one of them said it and they're like, no, I didn't freaking say that. But
Right.
yeah, it's very interesting what you learn and what you hear from folks that have different experiences than you for sure. So,
Man, they get very passionate about it. Like, no, it's like
oh yeah,
it's this. Like,
yeah,
everyone's got their own experiences with it. That's why you're so passionate about why you believe it's that. And everyone's got their own experiences, and that's what makes them, like I said, passionate about it, and that's why they believe they're right until, I don't know, proven wrong, I
yeah.
guess.
And at the end of the day, man, like I'm not going to sit on this podcast or any other podcast and like tell you, no, you're wrong about your scent control theory. That's bogus. You're wrong.
Hey guys, thanks for listening to the show. Hope you guys are enjoying it. There's so many different places that you guys can tune in to Fall Obsession Podcast, and one of them is the Outdoor Call radio app. Outdoors Dan from Respect the Game TV, he created an app that you can download on any device where you can stream hunting shows and podcasts on a loop every single day. Our show, Fall Obsession Podcast, plays on that loop on Mondays. That's the same day as our new publications on the other apps. And there's also tons of other hunting shows and podcasts on there that you guys can listen to. Go download the Outdoor Call Radio app today. It is free. You can start streaming immediately. And be sure that you follow their Facebook page, because Outdoors Dan does some live radio shows throughout the week. And even if you are not local to those radio stations, his broadcasts are shared on his Facebook Live. It's Outdoors Dan and the Outdoor Call Radio app. Go download it today.
Because again, feel like different people have different things to bring to the table. They have different perspectives on certain things. Different things work for different people. And if I'm so ingrained myself in this is how I do it and this is right, I'm never going to develop or grow as a hunter myself. If I'm not at least open to considering stuff or theories that other folks have. So I feel
Yeah.
like you kind of have to, you can definitely have your own opinions, and they can be like, yeah, man, like this is what works for me. Like this is what I do, and I believe in it, but I'm not so, ingrained in it that I'm not going to listen to somebody else's thoughts on the matter either. That's my 2 cents at least. So,
You have to be willing to adapt and change
yeah.
some things of your own hunting, and being willing to try new things and
Yes.
get out of your comfort zone.
Absolutely.
And one thing I'm doing for this year, I've been talking about it for years, and this year I'm saying, fuck, I'm finally going to do it, is put one of my regular t-shirts out in my tree stands.
Hmm.
That way my scent is kind of just out there circulating. Everyone's got their own opinion about it, but my opinion is, because I live in a neighborhood, I've seen the deer on my property. I've seen the deer in this neighborhood. I've seen deer when I was going to Western Michigan University. You can kind of train deer like cattle. You can train deer like cattle. And if they get used to it, so it's like, in my opinion, if you look at it like this, if the deer get used to that scent throughout the entire time leading up to hunting season, then all of a sudden that scent is there. It's like, oh, that's nothing new. I just see a different object up in the tree. But then you say they're smelling all the same scents. Then all of a sudden a new one comes in on opening day. Then they're like, oh, I'm perked up. What the fuck's that? And they're all like freaking out.
Mm-hmm.
So my opinion is, how can I make the deer feel less spooked when it comes to opening day?
Yeah. See, there's another one that I really hadn't thought of. So food for thought on my end, right? So
Yeah.
well, we're getting, I guess we're a little past our hour or whatever, but I got a couple questions that I like to ask anybody that joins us on our show for the first time, before we completely wrap it up. The first one being, what is one of your favorite hunting memories to date that stands out in your mind?
Mm. It'd be a tie between my first deer and my biggest deer, because they were both pseudo with my dad. Well, my biggest deer was pseudo with my dad. Um, I'd have to probably give it a nudge to that one. My biggest deer, I'd say that's probably my favorite memory in hunting, and especially with my dad.
That's awesome.
I can share if you want. It's up to you.
Yeah, please go ahead. We'd love to hear it.
So I generally like to get into my tree stand no later than 4 o'clock. If I can get there in 3:45, 3:30, that's my prime time, but 4 o'clock's my latest. I wasn't getting into my tree stand until 4:15. So we were walking out there. My dad and I were talking, and I said, I'm going to hunt this area. He said, well, I'm thinking about hunting this tree stand that's like 300 yards, 200 to 300 yards to the west of me. And he said, well, I don't want to hunt there because I don't want to mess up your hunt. I said, fuck it. Don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Just go hunt over there. And as we're walking out there, we hear this giant deer right next to the trail that we're walking out of jump up and just book it. And we're like, we didn't see if it was a doe, buck, or whatever, but we were like, that motherfucker was heavy. So we're getting in our tree stand. It's like 4:15. I'm all ready to go. 4:30, 4:45 runs around. I see this little yearling doe just run right next to me under my stand. And then two little shit bucks just start running after her like spikes. And then probably, what was it, 35 minutes later, I see another 8-pointer walk on the same trail that she was. And this was during the rut, I should say that. And I had my phone, I felt it vibrate. And there's a reason why I say that. I felt it vibrate when I put it in my pocket. So I see the bigger buck come. And then I'm looking behind him. I start hearing something more, and start seeing something behind a tree. And all I see is antlers behind him. Like, that motherfucker's huge.
Mm.
And all of a sudden, he turns behind this tree. He's now going south. And then he turns towards my direction. And I'm like, holy shit, that's fish hook. And I say this. I saw a photo of fish hook that September of that year. I think I shot him in 2023. I saw him one time on camera in September, right in front of my trail camera. And I named him fish hook because his brow tine was shaped like a little hook. And I see him, and he's eyeballing me the entire time. So he kind of makes an L. Then he starts walking right next to me, and he's just keeping down, up, down, up. He eventually gets behind a tree. That's when I grab my bow and I draw back. And he's walking more and more, and I can't get him to stop because he keeps looking at me. Then eventually he finally just stops for a second, and he's looking away. And I didn't want him to like really book it after this doe. So as I'm turning with him, my bow rise limb hits my bow hanger.
Oh,
So eventually I said, oh my gosh, shit, what do I do now? And instinctively, I don't know what happened. I've never practiced this shot a day in my life. I squatted like a recurve shot. And I went and shot him. He runs up 5 yards. He stops and looks back at me. I'm like, shit, did I just miss? Because I ranged him mentally at like, that's got to be 20, 22 yards.
uh-huh.
And I aimed just a little bit higher just in case to be on the safe side. And then all of a sudden, I start watching him crumble, fall to the ground. And I hope every hunter gets to see this a day in their life, at least one time. I watched him breathe and take his last breath as his head is going down to the ground floor. And I'm sitting there just in like utter shock. And I don't know what it was. Usually, all whitetail hunters know you get that rush where your heart's just like beating on your chest when you first see that deer.
Mm-hmm.
When I first saw him, my heart was just like, like it was just so calm. I'm like, well, that's fucking weird. And then I'm just standing there, just like, oh shit, I just shot fish. Like, he's my biggest deer ever. I can't believe that how this all happened. And then I get my phone out, and remember when I said my phone vibrated? My dad texted me, he said, you have a monster buck headed your way. I call him, I said, I just shot that monster buck. That was fish hook. Long story short, part of that, he actually ran by my dad.
Oh, wow.
So he was chasing that same doe, obviously, on their trail, and it wrapped around him. My dad looks down, and fish hook is staring right up at him at like 10 yards. And he starts going up in front of him. And he knew if he was to take his crossbow out and move it anyway, he's going to scare the deer away. So he just sat there. And then that's when he saw him walk away towards me. Then he texted me, and at the time I'm putting my phone away. And so I call him up, and I'm like, yeah. And he didn't believe me. He goes, no fucking way you shot that deer. And then we meet up, and we're like, you want to go up to the house and drop our stuff off? I said, yeah, let's go do that. He goes, no, fuck that. We're going to go get him. And just the sheer moment when we're looking at each other, when we're walking up towards it, as we're cresting the hill back there, we hear 5 deer scatter from the same spot that he was dead at. I thought he somehow miraculously just got up and lived, and just like, what the fuck? Did he just magically just come back to life and run away? And then we kept walking more and more, and he's still there. And just the sheer moment where my dad and I are looking at each other, and of just like, holy crap, this moment has happened. And I think that deer was bigger than my dad's biggest deer, and to
Wow.
see the joy in him, and my reaction with it all, and just the whole moment itself was just an amazing moment. Take away the size of it all, but just I think because I actually say this because of the size of it and the whole moment of itself was just special, I guess, from start to finish.
Yeah. That's an awesome story, man. And I couldn't agree with you more. Like any hunter that has not witnessed what you witnessed with, that animal, taking its last breath and everything. That's a side of this that most of us don't get to see or witness, right? And it definitely gives you an additional level of respect for these creatures that we pursue and everything. I feel like, yeah, it's a humbling experience in my opinion. So
Yeah, it humbled me. It was just watching it happen. I was like, I just took because when you shoot the deer, they're running 70, 80 yards. You might not see them when they go down.
mhm.
And to watch that happen was just, I remember it like it happened yesterday. And a quick funny story part to that is the year before we found sheds for the first time ever. And we were, it was after fish hook, it was around Christmas time. We're at my parents' house. And my wife looks at the sheds and she goes, "Aren't those fish hook sheds?" I'm like, "No, they're just sheds." I'm like, I've never seen that deer before. And we're looking at it, we're like, no fucking way. This was fish hook sheds the year before when I caught him on camera on Halloween.
Wow.
And, and just to see that part of the added story of like the quick little, ooh, nice little Christmas cookie. So after the fact of like, wow, we didn't even realize it at the time.
That's
Yeah.
crazy. A cool history with the deer too. That's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Well, last question I have for you. Everybody has a bucket list and those once in a lifetime hunts that they would love to go on at some point. I know you're a big whitetail guy and that's obviously a big focus of your platform and your brand, but whitetail or not, what's at the top of your hunting bucket list?
Grizzly bear with a bow.
Grizzly bear with a bow, going full Cam Hanes with it,
Fuck yeah.
huh? That's
And
awesome.
actually talking to Wyatt, he told I didn't realize you can hunt polar bears.
I
And
yeah, I saw some about that recently, actually. Yeah.
yeah, there's places up in Canada that you can hunt polar bears. It's expensive as shit. But I was
Mhm.
like, oh man, I want to do that because they're like the deadliest animal on the planet. But
Yeah.
so is a grizzly bear. But I was like, I don't know. I just a grizzly bear. It's something I've always wanted to do as a kid. I remember watching this video on TV where this guy took people out and he wanted to do it with a bow. And the guy was like, "Oh, he can't stand these people that want to do it with a bow. They're unprepared and they don't know what they're getting into." And all of a sudden, he said that he did this with every person that came out there with a bow. He wanted to see how they'd shoot. And at the very first time he drew back, the guide then looks at me and starts yelling and goes, "Rawr!" And the guy freaks out and he goes, "Ah." He goes, "Well, what the heck happened?" He goes, "Well, I freaked out. You scared me." He goes, "What do you expect? We're going to be out here hunting grizzly bears. You got to be prepared for that." And I'm like, yep, sign me up for every second of that
Sign me
shit.
up. I'm going.
Heck yeah.
That's
Yeah.
awesome. Yeah, I haven't fully committed to putting that on the list, but I used to be like, no, I ain't going bear hunting. Like any kind of bear, I ain't doing it. And I'm at least like open to let's do like a spring black bear hunt or something like that. And I'm archery only too, so everybody's looking at me again like I'm crazy because I want to do it with a bow. Haven't committed to the grizzly yet, but um yeah, it's of interest as well. So be a cool
Nice.
experience.
Oh, it looks like a blast.
I I should have asked this, and we're about out of time, but I should have asked this earlier so we could talk about more. But I'm gonna at least throw it out there. What is your bow setup? You're an archery only guy. I didn't even ask you what your bow setup is.
I got the phase 4
Okay,
with the UV slider, last year's model, and then the UV button. And
gotcha.
I shoot gold tip arrows, AAE hybrid vanes, and Magnus broadheads.
Killer setup. What's your arrow weight?
Oh shit! Now I'm drawing a blank. Three something. And I'm drawing a blank right now. I can't remember now.
Gotcha.
Dang it.
That's all right. I was curious. I was like, man, talking about grizzly bear with the bow. I was like, crap, I never even freaking asked him what kind of bow he shoots. We've been talking this whole time. I hadn't even gotten to that, but wanted to ask real quick. Brett, tell everybody how they can find you, listen to the show, all that kind of stuff before we wrap it up.
Find us on Whitetail Advantage on Instagram, Facebook page. We have YouTube. We do a live show every Sunday and Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Reach out to us in any way. You're going to be talking to me. I run everything. And yeah, if you ever want to be a guest on our show too, we have a website, whitetailadvantage.com. Everyone's welcome to come on the show. We never tell anybody no. We have everything set up where you can submit your request to be on the show, or if anyone wants anyone from myself, the whole team, anyone in particular from Whitetail Advantage to be a guest on like one of their own podcasts like you do, they can submit their request through there. And yeah.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for taking the time to come on Fall Obsession Podcast. An additional evening out of your normal recording schedule and join us. I appreciate it, man. Thank you.
Well, thanks for the invite, man. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. For our listeners, thanks for tuning in. I'll be back with you guys again next week for another episode. Catch you then.